Hello everybody and welcome to the batch review for the Kochikame batch on Jumputi Heroes. My name is Scarface King and it's a smaller batch and this is going to be probably a slightly quicker video than the normal batch reviews. I'm just going to go over the characters and what they do as usual, but maybe in a bit less detail because I don't think it's quite as necessary as there are less characters, and I think less of these characters are consequential to the meta of the game per se. Don't want to completely rule them out because there are some useful ones, but we're just going to go through them. We're actually going to start off with Ryotsu because Ryotsu and Lemon are the limited, and I've seen mixed opinions on them, and that's understandable because as a unit they are a very, very good hitter in PvP. One of the best hitters in PvP. In PvE, they are a pretty damn good hitter also, but the thing that kind of makes them good for PvE, the thing that makes them good for PvP, that maybe is less important in PvE, is in PvP it's 1v1, PvE it's 4v whatever, and in this instance you can see 4 turns boost, for 2 turns boost his own attack, boost his own ultimate attack damage. So in PvE, just boosted himself, no big deal. But in PvP, that boost will carry on to the next character. So that's pretty huge, especially if you've got a character sitting in wait that's going to be doing massive damage anyway. They're going to be doing even more damage. That goes up to 14% on each. I think a lot of people are expecting double tap, which is why some people may be a little bit like underwhelmed. But one of the key things that also makes him quite good for PvP is the guard against yellow type. So reduces weakening by 2, that's great for PvP because weakening is somewhat prevalent because it's one of the best ways to help rack up damage. And boost this unit's attack by 3%, goes up to 17%. It's good, it's an unconditional attack boost, we like that. But the guard goes up to 20%, but the guard is only against yellow enemies. And the idea is, this is to make Ryotsu more of a universal hitter in PvP. It means that even if you come up against an enemy that you have a disadvantage against, you're still not in a bad position because you're guarding 20% of all that damage, which, because of the way guard works, that is a percentage of the overall damage. So that is 1/5 of all the damage the enemy is doing to you is not going to affect you. So that's pretty good already. That's pretty good. Only if the enemy is yellow, of course, but still. You've got the unconditional attack boost. If they've weakened you, you're reducing that by 2. And even if you're not doing much damage to the enemy, because assuming they're yellow, you won't be doing much damage to them, those boosts are going to carry on to the next character where maybe you are going to be doing some damage. So, as far as PvP goes, pretty solid unit. Really is a pretty solid unit. For PvE, still good. Still good. I think I can see why a lot of people maybe were a little bit like not willing to pull for them, but I do wonder if part of the things that play into that is the fact that it's a Kochikame character, and if we got another character that released like this, I don't know, say a Goku or or a Luffy that did the same thing, but they were I don't know, red, and they guard blue damage, and it was virtually the same unit other than that, I feel like it would people would be quite interested. That could just be me, I don't know. But I think for PvP, this is one of the better units in the game. Admittedly, double tap kind of gives you a lot more utility, because a double tap unit can go in any PvP team in the first slot, regardless of who you're fighting against. You're going to want double tap first slot if you have a double tap unit. But oh, this is a really fucking hard hitter, bro. This is a hard hitter. And the buddy skill, which I think a lot of people were interested in, we'll look at max level, because it's a limited unit. You're going to want to use your jewels if they're worth it. Random skill bubble conversion, 117% base damage, which is very nice. Blast radius boosted by 1, which is very nice. And 3-turn boost to the attack of DPS class members by 32%. Now, I'm typically not a big fan of like the restricted to a certain class thing, but 32% on a skill that's already creating a boosted skill bubble, and it's only on an 8-turn cooldown, that's kind of dope. That's kind of dope. That's going to be very interesting, very, very interesting, and especially, again, for PvP, very, very interesting. Sadly, I don't think a lot of people did pull for him, at least from what I could see from our server, from the global side of things. But I think he's going to be one of those characters that he's pretty good. He's going to see a lot of use from these Japan players, these whales that we see a lot of. I can see why some people were maybe a little bit underwhelmed because they were expecting double tap. And it's a shame because we're still missing a double tap, but we're not missing a blue double tap, so it's fine. And the first official dual unit that does not double tap. So be it. Now, the gacha units. Both of these characters have their utilities. Both of them have their utilities. For a start, we have Haya, who is going to inflict damage and inflict fixed damage. For me, it's just okay. It's just an okay special. The passive. Reduced damage received for this unit goes up to 1900 at max level. And before this unit's turn, convert one block to a red. This is becoming quite common. Characters that will convert a block to another colour at the start of their turn. And as block bubbles become more common in PvE, this definitely does see some use. But strictly speaking, it's not, in my opinion, as useful as some kind of reduction. You know, we've got damage reduction in there. That's good. Damage reduction is good. But I don't think this... While it is somewhat useful and can be good on some stages, I think a character is going to last a lot longer in your box if they do something very specific that makes them very good for a certain stage. So maybe that's the only thing I would say. As for the buddy skill, this is where she could last a lot longer in your box as somebody that is getting good use. Burst 4 green bubbles, that goes up to 7. And for 4 turns, boost the attack of this unit's body by 57%, and for 4 turns, boost the attack of this unit's body by 22%. You might remember the double boosters, we talked about them in the last batch review. I think it was Fugo and Mister. Same thing, but for red. And as I said in that video, it's a good ability. It's a very good ability. So she's going to see some use, but I don't think she's a must-have. Unless you're an absolute PvP whale, and even then, I think it's probably a bit much. She's not an absolute must-have. She is a good unit, though. She is good, at least for that buddy skill. For me, for a front line, she's a little bit on the weaker side. She doesn't have a lot going for her. Jody. Jody does recovery-based damage, which, as I've said before, is something that has high potential, but there's not a lot of support for it yet. And as time goes on with these sort of things, you do get more support for these kind of characters, but it's a little bit underwhelming. However, Jody not only does recovery-based damage, she also ignores damage reduction, and for 2 turns, boost the ultimate attack damage of yellow and blue team members up to 15%. For me, that is a very strong ultimate attack for a standard gacha unit. There's a lot of things going on here. Damage reduction being ignored, recovery-based damage, and an ultimate attack damage boost for yellow and blue. Now, that's I think for a standard gacha unit, you can't ask to have that many more things crammed into a single ultimate attack. So she's at least interesting. Whether that necessarily makes her like a really good unit or anything, that's up for debate. But I think she is good and she is interesting at least. To say she's very good might be a stretch, but it's like I said, just a few more characters need to come out as support for like recovery base, like a big boost to recovery or some kind of, I don't know, some kind of different way to boost recovery. And bear in mind, ultimate attack damage buffs will work even if the special is on recovery based damage rather than standard attack based damage. So it's I find her very interesting as a unit, at least for the ultimate attack. The passive is counter attack guard up to 85%, and boosts her on recovery. The boost recovery unconditional makes sense because she needs the boost for her ultimate attack. However, Counter-attack guard, I'm not that big a fan of, but it's not that it's bad. I mean, any stage that uses counter is going to be good for. Counter's not quite as prevalent as it used to be in PvP, but when it was there, something like this would be very useful. I'm just not a big fan of counter-attack damage guard, because I feel like there's other ways to get around that. And I feel like there's other debuffs that could be seen too. But like I said, she's got so much stuff crammed into her ultimate attack. But this is okay. This is okay. Particularly good for Saigo Volvo, which makes sense. She counters his stage. The buddy skill. Convert a center bubble to a skill bubble. And boost its blast radius by 1. Convert all bubbles, not including skill bubbles, to yellow in the column left of center and recover 1500 HP, 112,000 in tower. They are just off the rails. They are off the rails with these PvP specials. Not only do you get a skill bubble, not only do you get a boosted blast radius on that skill bubble, not only do you get a column converted to yellow. Bear in mind, quite often these conversions will say not including block bubbles. This does not. It just says not including skill bubbles. And you get recovery up to 112,000 in tower. That is incredible. That is incredible. Now, I know there's some debate over like how useful is that in tower, because you've got so much HP in tower and the enemy can potentially be doing so much damage in one turn. Is that going to equate to much? But like, we're getting to the point where we've got all these support abilities and it's like, yeah, if you only have one of them, maybe it doesn't equate to that much. But if you've got like Camu and Jody and I can't remember who it was from the JoJo Fest, but they also had an ability like that. If you're getting all these characters and they're all doing these crazy things in PvP, giving you damage reduction, giving you extra HP, and you're still getting skill bubbles and other stuff, it's mad. These are mad abilities for PvP. It makes your team like function so much better, especially if you've got like a double tap or something like that. It's so good. All in all, as far as a unit goes, I think Jodie is definitely the stronger of the two available from the standard gacha. But her abilities are just they're all over the fucking place. It's crazy. She's got so much stuff going on here, and the buddy skill is just insane. But I think that was to be expected. I think I did say before this all started that there was a very good chance that the limited gacha and the standard gacha from Kochikame would reflect the current PvP meta a little bit. And you've got a massive PvP hitter in the limited, and you've got two very, very good PvP supports. So I think that was to be expected, and that's what we got. If you did want to go in on the standard gacha and try and get yourself a copy of Jodie, bear in mind you only have to spend 2,250 to get a guaranteed new unit on this gacha. Realistically, there's no downside there, I don't think. If you're assuming you haven't pulled one of these characters from the tickets already, and you did want Jodie, worst case scenario, you're getting higher, and she's still a good PvP support. So for me, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Now, as for the free units, we have 4 free units. Let's start off with Detective Speedo, Transcendent class event. So not expecting too much here, but he inflicts damage to one enemy, and if they are special class, inflicts additional damage. His damage is only going to come out at about 340%. For me, that's not going to be a great hitter per se, but he does reduce burn damage, which is not super duper common. It does exist. There are other characters that do it, but it's not super common, so it's not too bad. And when HP is 50% or more, boost this character's ultimate attack damage up to 16%. Mostly inconsequential, I would say. But the burn damage reduction is at least something. It's utility. It's good to have. Now the buddy skill bursts 3 block bubbles, and for 2 turns boost the appearance rate of blue bubbles, and for 2 turns boost the normal attack damage of blue team members by 40%. I think that's pretty good. Bursting 3 block bubbles is quite nice. on a lot of the stages where they do put block bubbles down. It's just going to give you a bit more wiggle room and gets them off the board. Plus, boosting the appearance rate of blue bubbles. It's not by a large amount, so that's okay, that's fine. But it's for 2 turns at least, so that's good. And you get the normal attack boost. I think that's quite a lot of utility on a 9-turn cooldown. I don't think you can really complain about that. It's obviously not the best support in the world, but for a Transcendent class event, pretty good. Pretty good. We have Mito Igiboshi. As I was reading through, I say reading, I can't read Japanese per se. And by per se, I mean I can't read Japanese. But I was trying to get information for the characters for this event and for the translations for the database. And part of that was skimming through chapters of Kochikame that are fully in Japanese, no English, because the vast majority, the vast majority of the series has not been translated. And I don't blame anybody for not doing it, because it's a gargantuan task. Not just because there's so many chapters, but because, you know, say for example something like Hajime no Ippo. Yes, there are lots of chapters, but it's very specific themes. It's about boxing, and you know, there's lots of key terminology that you're always going to be able to relate back to boxing. It's like, you know what you're looking for. With Kochikame, this entire series is a fucking mess. There is so much going on. So you would need so much knowledge of Japanese culture and Japanese regions and jurisdictions and traditions. You would just need so much background knowledge on that, or at least the ability to research all of that, and it would take so much time to do every chapter, and there's so many of them. So I don't blame people for not translating it, though it would have been helpful. It would have been helpful. Shout out to the Kochikame wiki for being one of the only places I could find English information on these characters. And I was able to find a few of the chapters I needed to at least get context for what was going on in the chapter based on the images I could see. And became quite a fan of Mito Igiboshi as I was going through, because her character is quite good. I will say this though, so what's funny is if you take, for example, any of these characters, you if you haven't read the series before, you might not know this, but because it's so long, the introductions between these characters are very far apart. And Mito Igiboshi, even though by the end of the series I think she's quite a mainstay, I don't think she appears until like the thousands, until we're actually past 1,000. So she became a staple of the series, but not till way later, after half of the series runtime. So kind of crazy. But enough waffling. Let's talk about the character. 310% that ignores damage reduction. It's not really anything special. She gets the bonus over someone like Detective Speedo, because that 310% is unconditional, and it's going through damage reduction to boot. But it's not like massive. It's good. I think it's good for a free unit. It's not massive. And counter attack guard, same as Jodie. She's a free version of. Wait, was it Jodie that had counter attack guard? Yeah. So that makes sense, because they're both supposed to counter Saigo Volvo stage. So you get that, plus you get a boost, unconditional attack boost. Again, it's very specific to a certain stage. So it's good. She's very good for that particular stage. Which, funnily enough, I think a lot of people had already maxed Saigo Volvo before they had a chance to max her, because her farming stage didn't come out till much later, even though the character came out right at the start of the event. So most people only had a level 6, so they didn't bother. But now they probably have a 99 luck, and if you do, she's very good for Saigo Volvo stage. The buddy skill. For 2 turns, reduce the number of bubbles required to create a skill bubble for yellow team members by 1. It goes up to 2 on an 8-turn cooldown. It is very much usable, but it's not setting the world on fire. It's nothing special. But yeah, 8-turn cooldown for 2 turns of reduction by 2. It's good. It is good for a free unit. It's definitely worth having. Make sure you get her to max skill. Then we have Nero Higashi. He exists in this weird space where he's technically a catastrophe, but also technically a transcendent. so I didn't really know what to expect for him as a character, but we've got another one of these free turn weakeners, the same as Chocolata. What's interesting to me is that it seems like, based on what we saw, Chocolata was originally planned to be a catastrophe, to be countered by that 7-page Muragiorno, and then they reworked things and he ended up becoming a Transcendent. So, what's interesting to me is that he was supposed to be a catastrophe, seemingly. Nero is sort of a catastrophe, but also not. So it's like a weird, it's like a weird skill that they give to characters that could have been a catastrophe. The free turn weakening, and as I said with Chocolata, I think this is a very solid ability. I think it's very good for a free unit, because even if the damage is, it's only 290, 3 turns weakening. That is very 20% as well. I know 20% is like whatever, but for 3 turns on a skill, it's not a support skill. You don't just use it once. You can keep using it over and over again. Obviously, it doesn't stack, but all you need to do is fire off his special at least once every 3 turns, and you're golden. So I think that's class. The passive skill boosts this unit's attack by up to 19%. Unit is immune to bubble extension. Solid. Honestly, as a frontline, solid, very good. You know, the attack boost is not that high, but I didn't expect it to be that high. The immunity to bubble extension is a nice addition. The weakening is the standout thing for him as a frontline. I think it's pretty cool. The buddy skill. Burst 3 reds, and for 2 turns, reduce the number of bubbles required to create a skill bubble for red team members by 1. 3 turn cooldown. Very, very nice. I think there was another character that had an ability like this, but I can't remember. But regardless, 3 turn cooldown, you're getting 3 red bubbles burst and 2 turns of reduction. This is very good. Very, very good for me. That's just me. That's just me. But I think all in all, as far as a Transcendent class event goes, that's all pretty good. That's about as good as you can expect for a Transcendent class event, I would say. Very good. I'm a little bit salty because I'm having a bit of trouble beating his catastrophe. I know I can do it. I'm so close, but it's like you'll be doing just fine. You'll be having no problem, and then you'll just hit him below that threshold, and he'll just instantly just bitch slap you with his ultimate attack. Really annoying. Finally, Saigo Volvo. We're actually missing the ultimate attack name because I was trying so hard to translate it, but it's like I have no context for it, and I'm not fluent in Japanese. I don't know it, so I'm relying on other people's opinions and what I can find on Google Translate, and whatever references I can find to it anywhere else, and I can't really. But I think it's something along the lines of someone's looking at him funny. Something like that. Someone's looking at him funny, which would be fitting for the kind of character that he is. His damage is damage plus bomb damage, which is good, which is undoubtedly good. I think it is a good ability. I don't know. I'm a little bit. Sometimes I have a little bit of trouble trying to like translate bomb damage in my head to actual damage. Because, like, obviously if you just do the basic, like, oh, 210 plus 212 equals a lot of fucking damage for a free unit, it doesn't quite work out like that, because of the damage calculations and the other boosts and stuff involved. But I think it is probably quite good. I think he'll probably get some use, especially because of the way bombs work and how they bypass reductions and stuff. So we'll see. Potentially quite a useful ultimate attack though. Passive, reduce the number of turns of weakening. That is good. And when HP is 75% or less, boost this unit's attack by up to 22%. Wish it didn't really have the restriction because the attack boost is not that high, but I assume that is simply because potentially his damage could be quite high here anyway. And his buddy skill. Convert a total of 9 block red, green, yellow, and heart bubbles. So that's a total, so it's like, you know, just basically a random selection of these to blue. and reduce the number of turns of weakening by 1 for blue team members, cooldown 8. Not bad at all. The thing is, when you get into some of these harder stages, it can be very nice to have a character that will like reduce a certain debuff and also do one other thing to help you with the bubbles, because there's so many times you're in one of these harder stages and you just don't have the bubbles to do it. You just don't have it. And an example of that would be the Nero Higashi stage. So he can actually be quite useful for that stage if you get his skill to max. 8 turn cooldown, reducing the weakening, which you do get inflicted with weakening on that stage, and he's going to give you a total of 9 blue bubbles on the board. Pretty nice. But that's the batch, that's the whole video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and that's it for this event, the Kochikame event. I'm happy that we got this event. Came at kind of a bad time for my rubies. I couldn't really participate in any of the gacha, but they gave out so many during the event that I'm starting to save up, and then as they are giving more as this event is ending and the next event is starting, maybe I can actually pull on some of the events that are coming up next. But I think all in all, as far as an event goes, I was one of the people that was a little bit disappointed we only got 7 characters, but I very much appreciate the effort the devs put in on this one, and it's made me want to learn a lot more about the series, and I'm hoping someday I'm able to do that. But I don't know. We'll see how that goes. And for today, that's the end of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you all next time.